you doing? It's the Butcher here, and today we have kind of our final edition of the Shadow Imbue Rogue build. This is the build that I'm going to continue working on and taking into the Gauntlet when it releases, and I think this is going to be a top tier Rogue build for the Gauntlet and to put up some really nasty times with. So the way I'm kind of going to do this video, I'm going to show off the builds. I'm going to explain to you what I'm using. You can obviously see here we're using a Shaco. This is the ultimate version of the build. I will be giving alternatives to this. I'm going to explain everything to you, and then at the end I will show off some Nightmare Dungeon gameplay. And the way I've been doing these builds, I did it with my Tornado Druid. I'm going to do it again with my Shred Druid, which is the one that will come out after this, is I will be showing you, because I've said this before, I just want to reiterate the point again. People have kind of speculated that the Gauntlet would be around level 70 because that's what they showed in that initial, basically the only gameplay we got. It was around a level 70 Nightmare Dungeon. However, I think with it coming out later, and things like that, there's a very good possibility that ends up being, like closer to a 90 to 100. So because of that, I'm kind of going to be showing two versions for basically all builds. One that is more geared towards the harder content, and then what you could swap over very easily for all these builds if it is, in that kind of like, let's say like the 70, 75 range, where you can swap over very easily. So I'm going to be doing that for this build just like the rest of them. Anyway, let's jump into it. So this is a Shadow Imbue Rogue, and basically what it does is it acts like this giant AoE bomb for the most part, using Penetrating Shot and Shadow Imbue. And then, or is it Penetrating Shot and Shadow Imbue? And then we have Rapid Fire here specifically for single target, mainly for bosses, but also if we got to finish off elites and things like that. So first, jumping into the skill tree over here. So we are using Puncture, and we're taking that into Fundamental Puncture. And that is to provide slow. Puncture provides slow, vulnerability, and it also generates essence or energy, as well too. And it's super quick. And I was going to use Puncture anyway. I just watched a video. Apparently, like Forceful Arrow and Heat Seeker, these other marksman skills that actually come from your bow. If you don't know, when you use Puncture, you actually take out your daggers or your sword and dagger or two swords, whatever it might be. These actually seem to be overriding weapon mastery, which is super important for us. So I would not mess around with these. I guess you could technically use these if you want, but Puncture is just super fast and super easy to use, and can help us apply vulnerability, which is very nice. Then coming down here, we're taking 3 into Sturdy, 3 into Siphoning Strikes, and Sturdy is actually something you could take points out of if you really wanted to. For example, if you never shake out, I could tell you what you want to do. Then we have 5 into Rapid Fire, and we're taking that now into Advanced Rapid Fire. This was just fixed in the patch yesterday, and I was waiting to make this video because of that, and it definitely does help our damage. So after you dodge, you get 30x critical strike damage. This was previously bugged, and it would override our key passive down here, Precision, and you would do way less damage. Now that is fixed, and we're doing more damage, which is very nice. Then we're taking Penetrating Shot, and we're taking that into Improved. Down here, we are taking Shadow Step. I just don't have a point into it, but like I said, you could take a point out of Sturdy and plop it right in there, and we just put 1 point into Shadow Step. We just want it, and we're going to have 2 charges of that because of our aspect. Then a very important one here is Weapon Mastery. We're putting 3 in this, and we have 3 in our Amulet, and we are using a crossbow, and I'll get to that once I get to the gear, but that's 30x multiplicative critical strike damage, and this build is just all based around crit, basically, for the most part. Now we're coming down here, we're using Concealment, and this is how we're resetting our Shadow Imbue through one of our aspects. So I currently have, 3 points in that right now. If you don't have a Shaco, I would recommend doing the 5 out of 5. But I felt like I could get everything else I needed with only putting 3 points in it. But if you do need to put 5 out of 5, I would take it out of, like I said, Sturdy if you need Shadow Step, and then over here, I would take it out of Malice as well too, because they're kind of our smallest multiplier. You could also take it out of Impetus as well too. I kind of like this actually, because it does give a pretty big multiplier when we're moving. But anyway, we're using concealment, and that is how we are resetting our shadow imbue. It also gives us crazy move speed to get to places faster while resetting our shadow imbue, and they also can't see you, so you can just kind of run into them, hit a couple punctures, and unleash a devastating penetrating shot, which is pretty awesome. Over here, so we're not using Dark Shot on our board, we are using the Umber's aspect, and I love it for its defensive capabilities, but mainly because of the 20% increase in movement speed when we have all 5 up, and because penetrating shot has ridiculous lucky hit chance, especially when using combo points. That paired with the fact that it counts every time it, because we're using trick shot aspect, so like splinter off, every time it hits, it counts as another hit. It doesn't just count as that one initial skill, so we're able to build up 5 like immediately and zoom around, and it's really cool, and it's also great defensively as well too. So it's just a great skill here, and we don't have to put it on our skill bar, which is amazing. Then we're taking 3 into exploit, 3 into malice, good multipliers right there. We're taking shadow imbuement, we're taking that into the blended for the vulnerability. We are taking frigid finesse here because one of our aspects as well too for the multiplier there. We're taking 2 points in intervention. I found 2 is fine. I didn't notice too much difference between 2 and 3. Did some testing on that, and I found 2 is fine just to have there. Then we're taking adrenaline rush into haste. Really want the movement speed or attack speed depending on where we're at. And then we have impetus right here too, because a lot of times we're going to be moving around and then unleashing kind of a big shot, a penetrating shot when we're going through mobs. It doesn't help us as much with bosses. But you can kind of run around them and get this nice 21% multiplier. And then we're using precision right here. And this is giving us, so when you cast a marksman skill, we gain a stack of precision. We gain an additional 1 if that skill critically strikes. Once we reach 6 stacks, our next marksman's or ultimate or core skill is guaranteed to critically strike, which is a big deal, and deals 50x increased critical strike damage, consuming all stacks of precision. This damage further increased by 15% of your critical strike bonus. So right now I'm up to basically 180 times multiplier, and I can get that even higher with better rolls. I actually had it way higher when I was using a different bow. But yeah, this is nuts when they changed this. It's by far the best key passive. The rest of them are honestly pretty useless. Like, they nerfed the living hell out of close quarters combat. This was, I believe it used to be 40, and now it's down to 10 if I'm not mistaken. Momentum's still good if you're using like twisting blades still, but it's just nowhere near as good as precision in terms of just raw damage output. So that's the skill tree, right? Now let's go over to the gear and see how some of this stuff works. So first things first, we are using a Shaco. This is best in slot for this build. It's giving us 4 ranks to all skills. It's allowing us to take points out of some of them. It's giving us all stats, max life, resource gen, and cooldown reduction. And the 20% DR2 is very nice. However, I know I just made a video on the unique crafting. Even with the new crafting, I know not everyone's going to be able to get their hands on this. So if you don't have a Shaco, it's not all doom and gloom. You'll still be able to run this build fine. What you're going to want on your helmet is you're going to want to rock with total armor. You're going to want to rock with ranks of shadow imbuement. You're going to rock max life, and you're going to rock cooldown reduction is what I would go with. And I would go with that because that will allow you to actually run kind of the quicker amulet, I would call it. This one has movement speed instead of armor, and that's what I'll get to as far as making the changes between tougher and easier content. But I would rock total armor. If you don't want to do that and you just want to be able to switch out the amulets, then instead of total armor, you can rock basic attack speed, give you some more attack speed as well too. So those are kind of your 2 options there. Like I said, the build will end up working just fine like that. Obviously Shaco's best in slot, but the build will work just fine with the regular helmet. And then as far as what aspect you want to put there, you're going to want to throw Might on there as well, basically give you the same effect as the Shaco. Moving down to our chest piece, just a regular defensive chest piece. So we want total armor. I have life on here. I probably just prefer regular DR and then close and distant. And then this is how we're resetting our shadow imbuement. So this is the resistant assailant, I guess it's called. And this is breaking concealment grants 10 plus resistance and maximum resistance to all elements. So it's actually pretty important. It's pretty good defensively because that 10% max resistance ends up being like a significant DR reduction. But then the bottom one's the kicker. Killing an elite reduces concealment's cooldown by 10 seconds. And this paired with a glyph in our Paragon board, which is I believe it's called Night Stalker. And it's over here. Yes, Night Stalker, which is entering stealth, reduces the active cooldown of Shadow Imbuement by 4 seconds. We're able to reset this pretty often, and by the time we spend our combo points and do all that, we have this up like all the time, and it's great. And then every time we kill an elite, we're resetting concealment basically as well too, because we have 10 seconds there. We have 12.6 over here. We actually get that even lower through one of our pet glyphs here, one of the unique ones, which I'll get to later. But even if you don't have that, you're constantly resetting it. Down to our gloves here. So we want ranks of Rapid Fire, ranks of Pen Shot, Attack Speed, Crit Strike Chance. Actually not the best pair of gloves here. Haven't been able to find a better pair. Some of my gear isn't really mid-max here, so that's what I'm going to be kind of working on leading up to the Gauntlet. But down to the pants, again, pretty defensive pants, but we do want Imbuement Skill cooldown reduction as just another way to get our Shadow Imbue down. So we're throwing that on there. With this, I have Close, I have Straight, and I have Total Armor. And then we have the Umbris aspect on here. That's how we're getting those Dark Shrouds. For our boots, this is how we're getting that second charge of Shadow Step. It's the Ravengers aspect. It's actually in the Codex for the season. And the actual thing doesn't matter, like the damage increase from it. So don't even bother saving them. Just grab the one from the Codex. All you want is the extra charge. But we're running max speed and we're running triple resist on here. And then you either want max evade charges or attacks reduced evades cooldown by 1.2 seconds. Because of advanced rapid fire, you have to dodge or evade, and I just think it makes it much easier. So I would recommend trying to get boots with those on them. Then we have rubies in all our gear here. Now let's move down to our weapons. So first thing, so we are using a crossbow. I really tried to get Sky Hunter to work. I really did. It just doesn't work nearly as well as a crossbow. For whatever multiple reasons, I guess it just doesn't work nearly as well. I really did try to get this to work. I was excited. I thought the changes on it looked really good, but it just doesn't work as well as the crossbow here. But you can see actually when we pop this in, the craziness, and this is why I thought it would work so good, or work so well, excuse me. So we're up to 206, and that's with a pretty crappy crit strike damage roll on this, but that's pretty nuts. It's not pretty nuts. It's an insane multiplier. But anyway, we're using a crossbow. I don't have the best one still at this moment. We want all stacks, dex, and then crit strike damage. We want those three for sure. The fourth one is kind of up in the air. Right now I have critical strike with imbued skills. You can also go with core. You can go with distant. You can go with vulnerable even. Any of those work, just boost your damage output. I would probably recommend either core or crit strike damage with imbued skills, though, would be the two I would go for. And then on here, we're running Edge Masters. We're going to be pretty high on energy, like all the time. So getting that 40x, because we're throwing on a two-hander, is nuts. And we actually have accelerating over here, so we don't really need, at least I found, we don't have the need really to put it on our two-hander, which is nice, so we can use this here. I don't think I mentioned, but we are using rapid aspect on our gauntlets here, which is going to give our basic attacks more attack speed, help us build up our combo points. But that's the crossbow. And then over here, we are going to be using Condemnation. You just get that huge up to 40x multiplier when using 3 combo points, which you're going to try to do every time. Get basic skill attack speed, which is very nice. Crit, which is very nice, and core, which is very nice. Damage with dual wield doesn't really help us, but that's okay. And then for our other weapon, we are going to want to use a sword just to get that more critical strike damage. And we are going to give up a tiny bit of attack speed, but that's okay, instead of using a second dagger. And on here, it's kind of the same thing as the crossbow. All stats, dex, crit, And then you can run, like I have core, that's probably what I would recommend, but you could also do again like critical strike and imbued skills or something like that. Works just fine. Then on here we have the Icy Alchemist, and this is great. And I actually haven't found really close to a max roll one. I'm still like close to 300 off, and that's actually pretty big when you look at the multiplier what you can do. But because our lucky hit chance is so high on our pen shot, this is going to go off all the time. It's going to release just these cold explosions around. It's going to freeze enemies, which helps with our frigid finesse. It's going to do great things. It's a fantastic skill, and it's really, really good this season. Now, and then we're going to be running, what are these? Why can't I think of the name? The green gems, oh, sorry, this is going to drive me nuts. Sorry, it's pretty early here. I have my cup of coffee that I haven't finished yet. Maybe I should. These are oh my god, the emeralds. Holy crap. So the emeralds and our weapons there for the extra crit to vulnerable enemies. And then for our jewelry here, so the first thing to note, with your rings, you want to get 2 separate resistances on here. So I have poison and lightning. And then for your boots, you're going to want the other 3 that you don't have. And then you're going to want to throw one of each of those in here, one of the gems for each of them in here. So I have the topaz and the emerald in there, so I'm able to max out my lightning and poison. Actually, I have them flipped around for whatever reason, doesn't really matter. But that's just something to note. That's how you can cap your resistances. As you can see, mine are capped. But you can see for poison and lightning, you kind of need to do this because we're not capped by very much. So just a note there. So as you're going, accumulate as many boots as you can that either have triple resist and 1 open slot open, or movement speed and 2 resist, so you can craft what you need. Basically, you just have a plethora of them, so when you're changing out rings, you can constantly just change out boots with it. But that's how we're able to cap resistance. But anyway, going over to the amulet, so this is where I have 2 different ones right here. So the first one I have has total armor, energy cost reduction, cooldown, and weapon mastery. And weapon mastery is super important with the crossbow. I did a lot of testing, like I said, with Sky Hunter and things like that. Weapon mastery with the crossbow and that critical strike damage multiplier gives this huge, huge, huge damage. So that is very important to have on your amulet, as opposed to some of the other passives like exploit or things like that, which have typically been very good in the past. But we have total armor on here, and as you can see, we're armor capped with that without using disobedience through things like our Paragon board. However, if it does end up being easier, pop on one that has movement speed instead. Will be pretty much armor caps for anything in the 70s to mid 70s. With this right here at 11.5k, and we could even get that a little higher with the Paragon board if we wanted. But we throw on that, and that brings our movement speed all the way up to 166, plus we can get another 20 from our dark shrouds, will bring us up to 186, and we're absolutely zooming with that. What you can do if you don't want to change around amulets, I know amulets aren't the easiest thing in the world too, is you can just go on the Paragon board. You'll see we have a lot of armor we're taking here in order to get this without having to use disobedience. What you can do is you can take these off and put them into more damage nodes like that, or more stuff over here like we're not maxed out on our shadow damage. And even down here, this actually gives you a decent bonus because it gives you more lucky hit with penetrating shot, and it actually fires an extra arrow with the rapid fire when spending 3 combo points. So you can do things like that just to up your damage in other ways if you're fine with having a little bit slower movement speed. But that is what we're going to do on our amulet. At least that's what I'm going to do depending on how hard the content is. And I'm going to show this off after I go through this. Cut it, show off somewhere 90 plus Nightmare Dungeon gameplay, which is whatever I got. But yeah, that's what I'm going to do. And then we're throwing accelerating on here for the increased attack speed. For our rings, both of them we want to do the same. Crit strike chance, crit strike damage, lucky hit chance, and max life. One of them we want the trick shots, or penetrating shot, splits off to the side. And this is basically how we get these huge shadow explosions. And then on the other one, we want corruption. So our imbuement skills have 40% increased potency against vulnerable enemies, which is great. And like I said, you just want to match these up with your boots in order to make sure you get the right resistances and cap that all out. But that's basically it for the gear and the skills. And I know this is kind of going on a little bit, but this is the ultimate all-encompassing version of this build. So now let's move over to our Seneschal pet. So we're using kind of the classic setup. We're using Flash of Adrenaline and we're using Tempest. On Flash of Adrenaline, we're using Genesis, Attack Support, and Duration. If you don't have Genesis, again, not the end of the world. There is not really good things you could throw in here. I usually would throw on Gripping before I got it. Doesn't really work that well, but all you really need is the Flash of Adrenaline in these two and you'll be fine. For Tempest over here, we're using Evernight, and then we're using Efficiency, and we're using Safeguard. For harder content, because I am going to be running like a tier 90 plus later, I like using Safeguard for the extra DR. For easier content though, I actually like running Arching right here instead of Safeguard. And if you don't have Evernight, I would just recommend throwing Arching here anyway. But Arching, it allows you, because this gives you 15% increased crit strike chance. It hits all these targets and gives you really high crit strike chance against a ton of different targets. So I really like Arching. But for the higher content, I usually just end up going with the DR. And then Specialization, obviously it's combo points right there. But yeah, if you don't have Evernight, I would throw Arching on right there. Now for our Paragon board, very quickly, this will all be in the description in the D4 build, just like all my videos. We'll have the full Paragon board and everything. I'm just going to go over what we're using really quick. So we're using Ranger. We're coming up here, we're grabbing, I think this is we're grabbing 2 legendary nodes actually. We're grabbing Cheap Shot, and then we're grabbing Combat for the crit strike increase. Then we are coming, I believe we come here next. This will all be in the planner ordered correctly. We are grabbing Efficacy right here, and that gives a huge max life increase. And this is the best board for this because this just this one is actually an intelligence node. So we're able to hit this requirement super easy. We have to like invest nothing into this basically. But then we're coming down, we're grabbing some more crit over here, grabbing armor on this board. Coming over here, grabbing some armor. We're also grabbing some core skill damage, some more core skill damage, some more armor resistance elements, and some more armor. And then in here is where I showed before, where we have the Night Stalker. We don't really have this maxed out. We really want this for the cooldown reduction of Shadow Imbuement. And then finally, we're going to be coming up here. And here we're going to be grabbing Exploit. Vulnerable enemies are very good for us, and this helps to make things vulnerable all the time, and just also gives us a nice little increased damage to them, even though it ends up being additive in the long run. Then we're coming over here, we're grabbing there's actually cooldown for our imbuement skills right here. We're grabbing all those. And then last thing we're coming up, we're grabbing Eldritch Bounty. This thing's actually not a necessity. So if you want more like life or armor and you want to take points out, you can actually spec all the way out of this, but we actually have a decent amount of extra points, so I go up there. But that is the Paragon board. So final thing is I'm going to show off some gameplay and then call it a build. So I will see you guys in the gameplay portion of the video. Alright, we're in a Nightmare Dungeon right here. So just like my last one, I'm actually going to be showing this off and not a vault, just because I feel like they'll be more indicative of what the Gauntlet will be like. You know, not the free the prisoners part, but more the layout and things like that. Where the vault's very similar. I'm sure you've seen it 1,000 times. So I just thought that would be better. We have a tier 97 though. We actually will get more movement speed, but besides that, nothing really too crazy there. But this is our movement speed with the non-movement amulet. And then just to give you perspective, this is with the movement amulet and without the up to 20% extra from Dark Shroud. So you can really zoom if we end up using the movement speed. But right now I'm going to armor cap myself out, and we'll get into it here. Kind of see what we want to do. Just throw the combo points out there and throw the basically nuke. And then once we have one left, we could just hit them with rapid fire. And then didn't really need to use it there, but we can reset like just like that. Our Shadow Imbuement, bang, and you can just see we're just annihilating screens really for the most part. Resetting it constantly, and then once we got one left, we just take them out pretty easily with rapid fire. But this build's a ton of fun. It's really good. It's really fast. Like I said, you could just nuke screens. This actually works even better in a vault because the enemies are so condensed that it just absolutely melts like pretty much every screen. But you can see here, once we get the Dark Shrouds up, our movement speed's good, and you'll see we'll have a bunch of Dark Shrouds up pretty much all the time. And we have actually 3 separate unstoppables too. We have 2 with our Shadow Step, and then we have 1 with our Concealment as well, too, grants us unstoppable. Sorry about that. But that's also really nice too, to get rid of some of the CC nonsense and just constantly be able to fly through the content. And I should mention too, when you, that's what I was going to say before, when you are using your rapid fire, you do want to make sure you evade beforehand, because you do get that 30x crit strike multiplier. See, like right there, we got CC, but we can get out of that nonsense and just blow literally all of them up. Kind of want to make sure you shoot it as central as possible too, if you can. Doesn't really matter too much, but it just helps take out basically the full screen. I don't know why I'm picking up here. Okay, get away from me. See, this is annoying. The lucky thing is I don't think we'll have to deal with that in the Gauntlet. You can see we just one-shot that elite with our rapid fire pretty easily. I hope this one has the boss, because that has been a problem with this build before. It's not the best boss killer, but now that they changed rapid fire finally to work as it's intended with, what is it, advanced? What is this guy hitting? Did you see that? He was just hitting air, basically. It actually becomes pretty, it performs fine at bossing, is basically what I was trying to say. So it's not really a worry anymore. And I forgot how annoying. I haven't really, I said this in the last one, I don't really run regular vaults just because, or regular nightmare dungeons, just because the vaults are mainly so much better this season. I don't want to take shrines. But I forgot how annoying some of this crap was. Unlocking these guys. Okay, come here, buddy. Oh my god. Okay, get the key. This is an annoying dungeon. Okay, the free the prisoners one stinks. The slay all one stinks. There's a lot of things. There's a lot of ones that stink, actually. I think the vaults are actually a pretty welcome addition for the most part. But like I said, I want to do regular nightmare dungeons for these, I think, because I think this will be more indicative of kind of the layout. And when you're doing vaults, you've got them super grouped together, which is super nice for us to run through, but I don't think that's going to be how the Gauntlet is. So I don't want that to be kind of how I'm showing off the gameplay, personally. You know, I even could be wrong in that, so who knows. Oh, I remember this one. Like I said, I haven't done some of these in so long. There is no boss fight, unfortunately, for this. You just have to blow up these corpse piles or whatever the heck they are. And slowed. Okay. And what you can do too is, I've actually been playing a lot of druids, so I'm a little rusty on this. You can set up your combo points before your shadow imbue comes back up, or as you're just running by, so that way you can just unleash it and not have to worry about setting up those combo points after. And I did actually want to mention there in the gear section, so I actually don't have Doombringer right now. It's like the only uber unique I want that I don't have, because I had to craft a Shaco and trade in 5, and if you haven't checked out my video on that, it's actually been getting a lot of traction. I go in with a lot of the problems with the uber unique changes, but I don't have a Doombringer. But I think even if I did, I don't think I would use it anyway for this build. I've said this in my review of it when I was showcasing it last season. It's much more of a defensive weapon, in my opinion, than offensive. Just because it gives you like the huge DR, but it actually, you lose out on, you know, like crit and all these other things, because it gives you a max life roll right and also a max life percentage, which is really nice defensively, but I don't think we need more defense. You can see that was a tier 97 and we were fine going through it. But anyway, yeah, so that's the build. I hope you guys did enjoy it. It's really good. It's really fun. And I will be coming at you. Next will be, I think I'm gonna have 2 videos on Shred. So that'll be fun, and then maybe a Lightning Storm or something one after that. But I think I'm pretty settled in on this probably being the best rogue build for this season to compete in the Gauntlet. I don't think it's going to get much better than this. So again, hope you guys enjoyed. It's been The Butcher, and I will see you in the next video. Peace.